Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Game Off podcast. This week we're going to be going over some news about SEKIRO and easy modes, as well as the Epic Game Store. Finally, we'll go over our matchup of the week. This week it happens to be Kingdom Hearts 3 versus Far Cry New Dawn. Alright, I'm Brent Langevin, joined by
Andrew Paulo.
Today we're going to start off by talking about the SEKIRO easy mode debate. I do not think that SEKIRO should have an easy mode. Dun dun dun.
I think the first thing we need to do is define terms here, because I think there's a difference between whether or not it would benefit from one, whether or not one is required, and whether or not development time should have been spent on it.
Okay.
Like assuming that no additional development time would be given for it should the time they had have been spent on it. I think you could make the argument, and maybe you would disagree, that the game wouldn't be made worse if, by snapping my fingers, an easy mode could be added at the expense of no one.
See, I think that that's a fair point, as long as the design of the game isn't, like, completely thrown off. Like, if the game is built around having a certain amount of challenge, then, you know, just being able to do whatever you want, take as many hits as you want on one of these bosses sort of diminishes the entire point of what the designers were trying to go for. But I think, to some degree, I would agree with you that if, like, you know, if they could add it, or maybe they could add it, like, 6 months later, it doesn't really diminish what the game could be. It's sort of hard to say. Like, I for one, this is background, I always play on the hardest difficulty, or at least close to. Some games are bullshit. But the other thing is, From Software, who developed that game, and as well as the Dark Souls series, for anyone who doesn't know, they very much have a very lean dev cycle. Like, these games are all built on the same engine. Like, I don't think Sekiro is in development for more than 2 years. Even some of the Dark Souls games were only in development for like a year and a half. So
with a short development cycle like that, you could definitely say, like, if this was their vision of what they wanted to create, and they had this amount of time to create it in, especially now working with, it's Activision, right, that published this?
Yes.
Yeah, so if there were any constraints put on them for a release date or release schedule, easy mode, almost, you know, like a tutorial level, I could see being something that is, all right, if we have time at the end, we'll put this in. Let's not sacrifice
sort of as a final polish.
Yeah, let's not sacrifice any of our main dev time on this. I can totally understand that. Where my surprise with this, and I have the same reaction every time this happens, because there was the same thing with Mario Kart on the Switch, the Mario Kart 8, when they added the, like, driver assist modes. And people getting very upset about that for the same reason of, it's not really playing the game, it's not the real experience.
Is that more for the competitive aspect of the game, or do people, like, just think it ruins the fundamentals of the game itself?
There are definitely people who are saying, and I think there are with Mario Kart 8, there's not, like, I don't think you can use those in competitive mode.
Right.
I don't think you can go and play online, but if you and I are playing, you can turn on steering assists, it auto accelerates for you. You can turn those handicaps on for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, but in, like, a co-op experience, like, accessibility is sort of the name of the game, right? You don't want there to be barriers between you and playing with someone else, anyone else. Your little brother, right. Your grandmother. Like, a game like Mario Kart lends itself a lot more to driver assists, or an easy mode of some descript.
Yeah, you could say the same, even like with Forza. Forza has a really granular set of driving assists that you can turn on and off. And that helps me.
It'll tell you where to drive.
Yeah, you can turn that down to essentially, like, someone who's never played a game before can sit down and do pretty well.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's ever complained about that in that game. But that game, especially the Forza Horizon series, is very much built around, like, being able to play with literally fucking everyone. Like, right. Where we're getting a little bit away from the topic, though, is Sekiro's very much a single-player experience, just like all the Dark Souls games, where I don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of there being only one difficulty, but I like it when there's two like hyper tuned difficulties. You know that the developers like went out of their way and made sure everything was paced correctly, felt right. I think God of War is a really good example of this. I think there's only 2 or 3 difficulties, and that game on the hardest difficulty, I would say, is like the only way to play that game. But like that's me, so I could see how my opinion would diverge a little bit.
That's where you kind of get into the difficulty of, is it okay is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better word for it. Is it okay to create a game that intentionally gatekeeps itself? Like, is it okay to make a game that just says, this game is extremely difficult, and we have no interest in you playing it if you can't handle its difficulty?
I mean, to some degree, we have so many mediums that are already like that. When you pick up a movie or something, you're not like, not everyone's going to watch the movie the same way, but it's still the same movie no matter what. And like, it was very much designed from the ground up. Every scene was like perfectly curated for one reason or another, and it just exists the way it is. And people, and you know, come as you are, enjoy it or don't.
Well, even with movies, though, I mean, every Batman movie has that scene at the beginning where they say, if you just landed from Mars and don't know who Batman is, he's the guy in the bat suit whose parents died outside of a theater. Like, here is your introduction because you're an idiot and have somehow never been exposed to Batman before. We're going to explain to you what this is.
But yeah, I guess that's probably more for the financials. Like, exposition is always in the benefit of the publishers and game developers. We're seeing that more and more now, like with how many reboots there are. Like, why wasn't God of War 4? It's because they want people to see it as a new entry point. It's not necessarily like an accessibility thing. It's more of just like, please give it another go. Don't even think about it.
With this, though, I think there's something to be said for, because I think that you wouldn't sell less copies if Sekiro had an easy mode. At minimum, you'd sell the same number of copies that you sold.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, to what extent are you sacrificing like your own vision of what you want this game to be to sell more copies? From at least has that luxury of being able to make these decisions. Like, I'm guessing Activision was pretty much like, you guys have struck gold a few times now. Like, we're going to let you do your thing because we don't own you.
Well, I think of, because there's been, along with this, a lot of people on Twitter and things like that posting very tongue-in-cheek pictures of like the warp zones in Mario or the Konami code with the same kind of language of you're cheating yourself out of the full experience, as the same kind of things that people would have done on older games and games in the past. That whether or not it fits into Sekiro's vision, I don't know, but I think there's something to be said for, because I know I didn't beat Mario 3, for example, the first time through without using any warp whistles. And I talked to people who would say that using P-Wings, even though they can be earned in-game, is still cheating and not playing it real.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that there are people out there that may have benefited from playing the easy mode and then graduating to a harder difficulty.
Yeah, no, I think you're starting to put ideas in my head, because I distinctly remember playing like Grand Theft Auto 3 and basically just being, you know, it was probably 10, 12, 13, somewhere around there. I don't know, when that game came out, and probably shouldn't have had it in my possession. Thanks, family. But I mean, for the most part, I was literally like doing the first 3 missions, getting bored out of my mind, and then just spamming cheat codes and run around in a tank doing next to nothing. And for some reason at the time, I thought it was like the best experience in the world. I don't think I could ever use a cheat code now, because I don't want, like, I do feel like to some extent I'm cheating myself out of the full experience. I wouldn't take that experience away from someone else and tell them that they were wrong. So I think I'm coming closer to you on the topic, maybe.
I think that there's and again, there's always the issue of development time and what would have had to been sacrificed. Because you can always make an easy mode by just, okay, the weapon damage is twice as much and enemy health is half. Yeah. And that's the old Nintendo style of easy, medium, hard. Of just, more health, greater pickups, or less health, fewer pickups.
Right,
But
and
I
then,
think,
but how many people have to then like touch it on that mode to make sure that the experience is the same? Like it's not just you whipping around, one-shotting everything, and acting like Spider-Man.
right? Yeah,
That's very much not the game that they developed and like put their heart and soul into.
right, and I think that's where I think the argument of this would be a lesser game if they had the same amount of development time, but had to devote whatever percentage of it to creating an easy mode, that some other part of the game might have suffered. I mean, I wasn't, we don't know the specifics of the dev cycle, but that's, I think, a really reasonable thing to believe.
Yeah.
I think the best case scenario would have been they finished the game and then were somehow magically given another month to put in an easy mode, at no expense to the original. I think what would they'd probably benefit, or what could be a nice medium, which some games do, is that you've got the difficulty-based achievements. You beat the game on easy, and then there's still that you beat the game on the way it's meant to be played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With that definitely comes its own sort of self-satisfaction. Yeah, no, I think if anything, you probably moved me a little bit closer to the middle on this topic, but I still think that they just unapologetically didn't sacrifice their vision for the game, because it isn't like it has any difficulties. Like, it's not like there's a hard mode or a normal mode. It's very much just, this is the game we made. Please enjoy it. I'm sorry if you didn't.
Yeah, and that's completely respectful. I respect that, and I can think of a ton of games that I played and sucked hard at, like something like Ikaruga, which I'm garbage at that type of game to begin with, and I remember getting Ikaruga for Dreamcast and being like, I don't even think you could easy mode this game. I think I'm just garbage, and I can't play this.
Well,
this
if
is
you're
too
garbage,
hard.
then everyone's garbage.
Yeah, like I don't have that mind-body game connection to play this magic color-changing black and white shmup that requires me to use 100% of my brain all the time.
Yeah, and that's the craziest thing about that game too. Is it's two buttons. You would think you'd go in and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be great at this game. It's so simple, and then you're like, oh my god, they call it bullet hell for a reason.
Yeah, same with Cuphead. Cuphead was another one that I played, and I got halfway through. I'm like, I can't. I am at my skill ceiling here. I'm not going to get better, and Cuphead isn't going to get any easier for me.
Sure isn't. Yeah, and that's another one that people definitely had problems with the difficulty in that game, and they said, no, this is the game we made. We wanted to play it.
I think the one thing that also hits into this that's kind of tangentially related is that, at least for like, if you bought this game on Steam, you have 2 hours to figure out whether or not the game's too hard for you.
That is interesting. I think that's more of a knock on Steam, because 2 hours is too fucking short.
And I think that's you can get 2 hours into Dark Souls before you realize, oh, this isn't just a difficult beginning. This is a difficult game.
Yeah.
And this is a game that does not get easier after the first 30%. It stays this difficulty the whole way through.
Yeah, they definitely manage your expectations, because every time you start feeling stronger, it just kicks you right in the nuts.
Yeah.
And then throws you off a cliff. But anyway,
so I think we solved that.
Yeah, we solved it. Thanks, Internet. You can go home now. Please stop posting memes that say "get good." It's not contributing to a discussion. That's just lazy. Now we have some interesting news coming out about the Epic Game Store. Yeah,
we've kind of not hit any of the Epic Game Store stuff since they first started grabbing exclusives. So I think this is less a specific news story and more an overarching, this is the world of PC gaming now.
Yeah, it's starting to reach a fever pitch. It's clear that they didn't just pay off a few different companies to get exclusives, but do the full realm of everything for some of our new listeners.
Yeah, so we had, I think the first big one was Metro, and Metro no longer being available on Steam and only being available on the Epic Game Store because of some, I don't know if the amount of money ever got publicized, but a very sizable contribution to their coffers to get them as an exclusive.
More than likely, yeah. And to be fair, also it should be noted that the Epic Game Store gives a larger percentage of proceeds to the developers and publishers than Steam
Yes.
does. Just full disclosure.
Yes. So it's not just money that's moving people
But,
over.
yeah.
There are, kind of like the Switch, there are things that are attracting independent developers over there as well. The next big announcement I want to say was Outer Worlds. I know that was got stuck in a lot of people's craws there, because there are a lot of gamers who were very excited about that, and they were the type of gamers who were also very excited about this not being exclusive to Epic.
Yeah, and so was it like Metro, where they had pre-orders up on Steam beforehand and they were just like, never mind, we're bailing? Because the Metro one to me was the wackest, probably.
Yeah, I don't believe that one was available on Steam at any point. I think they had announced it, like they had put some banners up for it, but I don't believe it was actually out there on Steam for pre-purchase at any point.
Gotcha.
One of the other big ones was Phoenix Point, which was Julian Gollop, the original creator of XCOM, his kind of return to strategy gaming. And it was to add more general shadiness into it. This was one that was funded on Fig, which Tim Schafer's weird crowdfunding games by investing in them, but you can only invest if you have several $1,000s to put in.
Yeah, it's investing for the upper middle class, so just like all other investing.
So that one got called as an Epic exclusive, and they got some money for that, and people were... I think that may be one of the more reasonable frustrations for people of when I invested in this game, you had no interest in making this an exclusive, and now suddenly what I invested in, the whole thing of it changed, and not only changes what I can do with my own copy that I'm getting, but also changes the nature of my investment itself.
Yeah, absolutely. If I kickstarted a game and they mailed me a Wii U copy and it was meant for Xbox 360, I would literally throw it out a window.
I know that. So some of the other big ones, I think the final season of The Walking Dead, I believe, is going to be on the Epic Game Store exclusive for a period of time. The
or not Telltale anymore, the episodic one.
Yes.
What?
That was my understanding. Maybe that is outdated information here.
That would be a real weird one, considering that it's like the first half of that season is already on Steam. I'll take your word for it. I don't know.
Actually, Borderlands 3, before we get into that, the one that I'm most disappointed about is Dangerous Driving is an Epic Store exclusive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes,
you've been talking about the game for quite a while.
I have been. It comes out tomorrow. It'll be the first game that I purchased through the Epic Store, other than giving money to Fortnite PvE.
So there's an interesting point. Did it almost deter a purchase from you?
No, but I already own games through Origin and Uplay and GOG and Steam and Epic, if you count like their PC version of Shadow Complex and Fortnite PvE and Unreal Tournament. So I already have a pretty splintered library, so that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And this is going to be my own hypocrisy here. Because it's a game that I'm excited about and a team that I kind of want to see succeed, anything that's going to, oh good, someone gave them money to be exclusive, a company wants to have their game, I'm happy for them. Good job, guys. Good job, Three Fields.
And that's absolutely the right attitude. It's like you want to support the developers first and foremost. Yeah.
But I get that it will turn off some people. And it does seem silly to me that I have the first two games in Steam and the third in a different system altogether.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't like owning things for multiple consoles either. Like, I tried to wait out some games, and this is going to make me sound like an Xbox fanboy, but it's mostly just because I'm too lazy to switch inputs. So I just lean on my One X the most. But like sometimes I've very much waited to see if games that were previously like PS4 exclusives would eventually come out on Xbox. And when I'm finally like, it's not coming out, I guess I'll switch my input.
And then I guess the most recent one is Borderlands 3. That was the first recent big one to or that was the most recent big one to really get a lot of attention for being on the Epic Game Store and just having a very bizarre reveal.
Yeah, the whole thing was a little bit of a letdown. It was just like, hey, it's coming out. Like, I was at PAX East where it was technically announced, and there was literally, I didn't see a single sign for it. They didn't have it demoing anywhere. So it's just like, hey, it's PAX East. That's an event. It's close enough to release. Let's talk about the game. Quite literally, it was just like, oh shit, it's literally 6 months before release. We should probably announce this game so we can start marketing. And then they did, and then they went away until Randy started yelling at the internet again.
Well, yeah, Randy. That release or that announcement video was also like extremely lackluster. I feel like there just wasn't a lot in there to really get psyched about.
Yeah, they seem to pretty much just be like, hey, it's more Borderlands. We know you love Borderlands. This is all the stuff that looks Borderlandsy.
And the gun with legs.
Yeah, very Borderlandsy.
Do you have any strong feelings on the Epic exclusivity debacle?
Right now, I don't, because so much misinformation sort of come out about the Epic Game Store. Like, I know that the Chinese company Tencent has a huge market share, owns a huge percentage of Epic, and they've sort of had shady dealings in the past. There was also that whole malware thing that spyware thing that I got completely debunked. So, like, I have apprehensions about it, but I mean, at the end of the day, if they're doing right by developers, if they're paying developers more of the money that they've worked so hard to get, and it doesn't completely destroy the market, then I'm going to be a very happy camper.
The only argument I've seen that I felt really worked was Jim Sterling made the point that the Epic Game Store, as a storefront and as a purchase portal, is really bad. Like, it doesn't have a cart yet. It doesn't have a lot of the features. It doesn't have reviews. It doesn't have a lot of the features that you want from a game store.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a much more reasonable argument than just, I want all my games on Steam.
Yeah, one thing that Steam does do really well is, outside of like the connecting to the DRM thing, if you don't want to see Steam, you don't have to see Steam.
Yeah.
So, what have you been playing this week, Andy, other than Far Cry New Dawn?
Other than Far Cry New Dawn, I actually got back into Gems of War since it got released on Switch.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that's not the most exciting answer.
No, I mean, it's a match 3 game. For those of you who don't know, it's got like an adventure mode, and it's free to play, so they're very money grubbing, from what I remember.
As far as microtransaction goes, I've not felt at any point that I needed to spend any money.
Oh, that's good then.
So that I'll give them that. It's the like spiritual successor to the Puzzle Quest series by the original developers. Now that it's been taken into the direction of just licensing it out as a Adventure Time, Magic the Gathering, Marvel, whatever license you've got, we'll take it and make a Puzzle Quest game out of it.
Do they actually have an Adventure Time one?
They had an Adventure Time Puzzle Quest.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
It was not the worst of the branded Puzzle Quests. The Marvel Puzzle Quest is my least favorite. But this one Gems of War is good. It's well made. It's got its online elements of guild and PvP are really well done. The only real problem I've run into it is that it's one of those games where the online community is gated off from all the other online communities. So if you want to play it on Switch, even though this is a mobile game that you can also play on Steam, if you don't play it on Switch, you have to create a new character and play with only people who are playing on Switch.
Oh.
No way to import your character or do like Warframe did, where you had the one-time switch your account over from PC to Switch.
Yeah, so you can't do the print down where you just get everything and then moving forward, it's just, you're progressing on one or the other.
Yep, which seems really weird to me because Gems of War has been out for a long time and some people are very much into the end game content. So maybe they're just hoping that... I actually don't know what they're hoping, because it's not like it's now suddenly in a more portable format. It's a mobile game.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that's hard to develop for, like Smite, which has been around for quite a long time now, probably 7 or 8 years, like just, I think, weeks ago, got the ability to like have cross progression. It's surprisingly rare in games, especially games that are on like many platforms. Like there was a lot of news because Fortnite allowed crossplay, cross progression, but they also have Epic behind them, who's now like fucking making $1 billion a month. So
Yeah, and I'm sure that Fortnite being the biggest game at the time probably helped. Where Gems of War, I don't think has the same player base as Fortnite. I don't have those numbers on
oh, come
hand, so
on.
I can't be
Yeah. I'm
100%.
sure if we open up Switch right now, Gems of War is probably right after League of Legends. And like top played
Yeah,
games.
I think so. You're probably right.
I know.
So that I've also been going through my backlog and catching up on some other games. But as far as new stuff, Gems of War, I got back into that
Cool.
pretty hard in the last week. How about you?
Beat Kingdom Hearts about a week ago. This week I've been putzing around. I was playing this weird pinball game on Xbox. I don't know why. Pinball games always just seem so like welcoming. It's just like there's no tutorial. It's fucking pinball. Like you better know how to play this. So like I was playing that like some random pinball game for like 3 hours the other night, just zenning the fuck out. What else? I started playing Ashen, which is not a Dark Souls knockoff, as I'm sure most people have heard it in that context, but it's very much like a challenging action adventure game. I don't want to say RPG. There's not that many RPG elements. In that way, it's really hard to compare to Dark Souls, because Dark Souls has like, the real old school like D&D style, like +1 point to strength and like every single level, like that sort of thing.
Right.
Ashen, as far as customization goes, it's pretty much just like you can power up your weapons. You can have a few what are effectively runes, because you have like rune slots. I think they're called artifacts or something like that. And yeah, it's a challenging game. It a little bit friendlier to play than Dark Souls, even though like a lot of like the key art and like the videos that they showed were very much like dark and like shadows crawling around. And even like the demo I played of it last year at PAX East was like literally you were underground, like you had a lantern in a cave and you had to fight a shadow monster. So it was like, oh, this game is completely in darkness. And I was pleased to find that that's not necessarily the case. Like when you're in town, there's like happy, like folksy music playing and stuff. So like in Dark Souls, you very much never get a break from the Dark Souls. But in Ashen, you can have some time to yourself and then just be like completely afraid to leave town. Sort of like real life, where you're like, I don't want to go outside and face the real world. I'm just going to sit here and like listen to coffee house music and pretend that there are no problems. But yeah, that's all I've been up to. So I guess without further ado, might as well jump right into the matchup of the week.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This week we got Kingdom Hearts 3, a very long anticipated game, versus Far Cry New Dawn. Which
are you saying that Far Cry New Dawn was not long and anticipated?
I didn't want to qualify it because I hadn't played it, but if you want to qualify it, go ahead.
I mean, I think that people have been waiting for New Dawn for easily, what was it, 6 months ago that they announced it?
Before we get into this, I do want to disclose that I am very much a lifelong Kingdom Hearts fan. So there may ooze some biases throughout my review, but I have plenty of hit points here too. But I just wanted to say I've had this game pre-ordered for 6 years. Don't pre-order games, kids. It's very stupid. It's a waste of money. That's how people con you. But I mean, I played Kingdom Hearts 1 when it first came out, picked Kingdom Hearts 2, cried a little bit at the end of that. Thought Kingdom Hearts 3 was coming out, 3 years after that. Been a long wait.
They sure showed you.
They got me again. Fucking square.
I was going to try and qualify my statements about Far Cry as also a lifelong person who has played Far Cry games and has been moderately enjoying them the whole time. So I just want to make sure that equal bias was out there.
No, don't worry, Andy. I won't hold it against you.
I appreciate that. I just don't want people to think that I'm some Ubisoft shill or anything.
Here, why don't you go first the gameplay for Far Cry New Dawn and just give us a little overview of Far Cry New Dawn as a whole.
Okay, well, if you've played a Far Cry game since Far Cry 3, then you're familiar with the gameplay of Far Cry New Dawn. It's the same big open world, go around and do missions, take over small little encampments, with stealth or just going in guns blazing. It has the same balance issues where stealth is horrendously overpowered, and it's just sitting on a hilltop and sniping people is the easiest way to take down these outposts. You do that for a while, you've taken down over the outposts, you do some very set-piece oriented missions, and then you get your final encounter and you're done. Nice, tidy couple of hours of Far Cry fun. They don't have the towers anymore, but I don't think they've had those since Far Cry 4.
Yeah, it was news at some point when they removed them.
Yeah, because I don't think Caveman Far Cry had them, although that, cavemen, so not really. And then there was a big joke about in Far Cry 5 on how they made you climb one of them, and the guy who gave you the quest said, "But don't worry, I'm not going to be making you do this for the next 20 hours or something like that. This is the only radio tower we've got in town," kind of joke. Which, good. Wait, glad that you're recognizing your faults and the crutches you leaned on. New Dawn is set in the world immediately following Far Cry 5, or sometime in the future, but it's in that same world. I think this may be the first, if you don't count the Far Cry 1 and all of their garbage spin-offs and sequels for Far Cry 1, with that guy that kind of looks like, I'm not going to remember who he looks like, some German actor on the front of it. I think it was the guy that was actually in the Far Cry Uwe Boll movie. This is the first one I think is a direct sequel plot-wise, as far as, you're continuing. There are characters from the first game that are referenced and make appearances in this one. You are in the apocalypse that happened after the ending of Far Cry 5, which I guess, spoilers, I mean, it's the premise of the game, but spoilers, Far Cry 5 ended with an apocalypse. So, take that with what you will. The gameplay is about the same. You're running around, taking stuff over. You've got a kind of home base that you collect materials and level it up so that more weapons are available to you, better cars are available to you, that sort of thing. They've done away with the weapon customization entirely, which, if you ask me, makes no sense in-game because all the weapons are made out of garbage. Like you're making silencers out of oil cans, kind of, crafting things together a la Fallout. But none of them are customizable. You've got a rifle, and it has a scope that is on there, and a silencer that is on there, and you cannot take them off. You cannot get the rifle without them. But it's the same Far Cry gameplay. You drive around, you shoot people, you take over bases, you do some missions that are fun, I guess. It's a good game.
Were there any improvements to the gameplay over Far Cry 5?
No. Probably not. I didn't notice any. It was they added these kind of like other map missions where you go into a menu and select like, I'm going to go raid this aircraft carrier, and you can raid it on different difficulties and with better rewards. You know what? There's one gameplay thing I remember. This isn't like I played this game a month ago. Like I was playing this last week. I should remember new gameplay things. They had, you can go and when you take over a base, an outpost, you can decide to raid it and just let the bandits come back and take it over again. And then you can take it back from the bandits again at a higher difficulty for better rewards.
Oh.
And that was kind of cool. And you could do that for each base, I think 4 times up to the highest difficulty. And then you had done that. And no one can take that away from you.
When you say better rewards, are we talking like shared world shooters where it's like, we're gonna do this on the higher difficulty and yay, like really really good loot? I'm glad I spent my time doing the harder difficulty.
No, it's not that. You get crafting materials which you can use to improve your weapons, not by buying things or building onto them, but in generally just like, burn 20 of this material and you can increase its damage by 7%. That's it. Like it's pretty bare bones and boring as far as that crafting system goes. And if you're like me, about halfway through the game, you will have unlocked the weapons you're going to use for the rest of it. And there's no reason to ever pick up a gun off the ground. There's no reason to ever switch them out because you don't really need they don't build it in a way where you need to keep switching your kit out for different situations.
Yeah.
It's a really good. Like, I had a lot of fun with it, but I had the same fun that I had with Far Cry 5 and the same fun I had with Far Cry 4. It doesn't feel like it's an evolution of the series at all, in as much as it is just more. Whereas you had something like Blood Dragon, which was like, wow, you've really done something different with this. There is some changes you've made that make this feel like a different game, but still fun.
So, what drove you to your decision? And this is probably better for a later category. But why did you purchase Far Cry New Dawn? Because it was very much presented as not its own new game, like set in the same environment. They were selling it cheaper, so they could probably get you to forgive some of these like less developed and thought out areas. What drove you?
What drove me was I was looking for a co-op game I could play with a friend of mine.
Okay.
And this was a new one that came out, and beyond anything else, the co-op was well done.
Interesting.
You could very easy to set up a game and play it. It didn't have. They got rid of that ridiculous. You've been tranquilized and are now forced into a cutscene and a mission that you had no warning of mechanic from Far Cry 5.
Oh, thank God.
Which made even less sense in co-op. So they got rid of that, which was great, and so now you can just have your friend come in and just play however much you want, which was great. And that's what we did. I did most of the missions solo, and then he and I just puttered around almost like it was GTA and just shot stuff and blew stuff up, and it was a fun little sandbox for doing that. But that was the main driving force for me. It was not a I gotta know what happens to this Creed guy and his weird cult of people.
Did the co-op affect the gameplay at all? Like, did it make any enemies more difficult, or anything?
Oh man, if they did a very bad job making it seem like it did, because it's not a game where it felt like more enemies were on screen, because when you're in co-op, at no point did I feel like, oh god, the enemies are getting harder. Oh, they're ramping up. They're really. It's the same. It's just there's another guy there shooting for you, which is cool. But it's just it's the same game with co-op. But that's the way it was in 5. I can't really be mad about it, because they didn't say they were going to fix that. They didn't, but they also didn't say they would.
Well, good to know.
How would you summarize Kingdom Hearts 3's gameplay in a probably more enthusiastic way?
Oh, yeah. So, brief overview of Kingdom Hearts 3. I pretty much already covered, the great weight that is Kingdom Hearts 3. But if it wasn't clear, it's not the third game in the series. It's maybe the 10th, and very much the story of 3 tells the story of all of these games, not just 1 and 2. It's not a direct sequel to just 1 and 2. It's a sequel to all of the games. But it's most famous for being a mix of Final Fantasy worlds and Disney worlds. And what's also very interesting about 3 is that it's not a mix of Final Fantasy worlds. There's not a single Final Fantasy character in it. So that it is...
Really, no Sephiroth in there at all?
No Sephiroth, no Cloud, nobody. It was very, very jarring to find that out, because that was one of the reasons I got into the franchise in the first place. So it's very much just... And I mean, there are so many goddamn characters in Kingdom Hearts 3 at this point that it's like, well, probably don't need to further exacerbate what's happening here. What else? I mean, for the most part, it's you're going around to planets just like in the old one, and you're unlocking the heart of the planet, quote unquote, by saving it from the darkness, that sort of thing. And it tells the story of individual Disney worlds, as well as it has an overarching story that culminates much later in the game.
So when you say Disney worlds, are you talking about like different, like the Cinderella world and the Peter Pan world and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it quite literally visualizes them as their own planets. So even though like movies like Snow White and Cinderella would conceptually all take place on Earth. None of them are on a place called Earth. They're all their own planets, you know, literally floating on a rock, like wherever the hell. Like, yeah,
Okay.
like Pirates of the Caribbean is literally like when you fly to the world, it literally looks like it's just a giant skull with tentacles flying off. So it's like, well, I don't know how any of this would work in reality, but I'm no physicist.
Right.
Neither here nor there. The gameplay is sort of what I've always found to be the strongest part of Kingdom Hearts 3. So in this game, I really think they nailed a lot of the gameplay. It very much does the Japanese thing of you am become God. Like, you're doing all sorts of ridiculous things, like running directly up walls and beating shit out of titans with your tiny keyblade weapon. And it's worth noting that I think Sora in this game is 14 or 15. He hasn't aged much over the last 20 years. But it very much leans hard into like you become God. It's an action RPG game where you're very, very much jumping and flying through the air and slicing and dicing and summoning all sorts of things. Not the least of which random Disney characters in the middle of fights like Simba and what else? Stitch. A few other ones. That was
Mighty Warriors.
Mighty Warriors. Yes, the Little Mermaid was one of them. The mightiest of warriors.
She's hardcore.
Oh, yes, she is in this game. The gameplay itself, primarily in the combat, it gives you so many tools to work with that, like, I very much felt like I had so much fun playing with, like, half my toolkit and, like, didn't need to use the other half, but, like, other people might just want to spam, like, summoning those heroes that I had mentioned. But whereas, like, I just found it like ceaselessly appealing to literally just hit attack and like whiz through the air at 45 miles an hour towards my next target, hack them up, launch them into the air, continue the combo in the air, throw them to the ground, like launch a giant thunder attack that blows up the entire quarter mile around me. And in this game, I think for the first time, you can have 3 different keyblades on you at the same time. One of the things that it didn't do in the combat well was like there wasn't really a reason to switch between them. They basically just became like more gear that gave you more strength, and you would always be using whatever was the most powerful weapon. Each keyblade is...
That's disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, all the keyblades are geared towards different things, so like someone who focuses more on the magic usage would have a different kit than I would. But I mean, it's pretty obvious what you should be using gear-wise at any given point. But I think the most impressive thing that's also one of the more new things for the franchise itself is just the incredible level of pageantry in the game. And I think you had mentioned that Jim Sterling had referenced the genre as sort of like spectacle fighter, which is a pretty damn good way to describe it. It very much at any given time, you're getting like 5 different abilities that are proccing randomly. Anything from like... classic rides like the pirate ship. You could spin around on the pirate ship.
Wait, like Disney rides?
They're more generic than that, so it's like rides you probably could have seen at any theme park growing up. Other than the Magic Teacups, that's very much a Disney thing as far as I know. There's the Magic Teacup, there was Carousel, there was a roller coaster that's in a few rare fights, but it's used really well. I think it was only used in 2 or 3 fights in the entire game. And every time I got to use it, I was like, yeah. It's a game that's really impossible to describe, because if you had never played the franchise and you saw exactly what was happening at any given moment in this game, you would just be like, this is like, games have gone too far. But I, for one, ate it up.
The combat is active combat.
Yeah, very much not turn-based. You're spamming attacks. I mean, you could probably go through the whole game literally just hitting A over and over again if you play it on the easier difficulties.
Is this game made worse by the fact that it has an easier difficulty?
This game, no, because it wasn't made better by having a harder difficulty. So, even though it's a single-player game, which was like part of my argument before, it's very much meant to be accessible since it's a bloody Disney joint. I will say, as a negative to the combat, is those like the rides that I mentioned before did feel a little bit shoehorned in. Like a lot of times they were like, there was too much of a cinematic build up to it, and it just got annoying. And I'd get into fights, and I'd be like, it would take me 5 times as long to, start this the Mad Teacup ride or the Blaster ride and like kill them, and as opposed to just hitting A bunch of times and slicing these things to death. So
yeah, that's always a shame.
Yeah, so a lot of times I would just leave them on my screen as the timer was ticking down. I was like, come on, use me. You're running out of time. And I'd be like, I don't want to. So I think like the pageantry sort of had its limits, but overall I truly had a blast with the gameplay in this game.
Yeah, it sounds like you enjoyed it a lot more than, or you're at least a lot more excited about it than I was about Far Cry New Dawn.
Yeah.
Like, you've got actual emotion in your voice. I can tell that you felt something other than just acceptance at what you were playing.
I did not describe anything as just fine.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You described everything in very, very glowing terms.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Now, is the combat much different, or is the gameplay much different from previous Kingdom Hearts games?
I would not say so. The UI is very much the same. The essence of the game is very much the same. There's just a lot more like bells and whistles. Like it takes a lot out of like the Devil May Cry rulebook more so than it does like Regress, where it gives you more abilities, and if you want to use them, you can. It's not as difficult to learn as Devil May Cry by any means. They definitely kept it very accessible though.
Okay. So someone like me who played all of 1, some of 2, and none of the 2.8, 1.9, dream drop distance nonsense, I would be able to jump in and understand what's going on.
I cannot think of any reason you wouldn't be able to.
Perfect. That's really good to hear.
So I guess didn't sound like you are a very big advocate for your game winning the gameplay category. So
no, I'm not an advocate for it losing by any means, but I'm very much if it lost, it would not hurt me in any way.
And I would unabashedly say that I think Kingdom Hearts 3, maybe this category more than others, deserves it.
Yeah, it sounds like you really, really liked that game.
I really like the gameplay. We'll get to the more stuff.
You really liked the gameplay. You enjoyed playing the game.
Sure did. All right, so that round goes to Kingdom Hearts. All right, so now we got art and sound.
Sure. The art and sound in Far Cry 5 was definitely there. I could both see and hear the game anytime I chose to. If I closed my eyes, I could still hear it. If I covered my ears, I could still see it. So that was both expected, but pleasant that continued. Because it is just, and this is the problem with the Far Cry series, is that it has not iterated enough. Far Cry needs its own Assassin's Creed Origins. It needs a moment for someone to boil it down and then rebuild it, because the sound design's fine, the voice acting is good, the guns sound good, the helicopters sound choppery. When stuff's on fire, you can hear it burning. I sound very very negative on the game, and I'm not. I played it to the end. I really enjoyed it, and if there had been more, I would have kept playing it. But the sound was just kind of, it's fine. The visuals were definitely a step away from Far Cry 5, just because they were a lot brighter. There's a lot more bright neon pinks and yellows and blues, which were kind of, I guess, supposed to represent the apocalypse. I don't really know why they were there. The bandit gang uses a lot of those colors, and so when they take over areas, there would just be walls painted kind of hastily in these bright colors, and it looked really good. As did the way they designed the guns that you weren't allowed to customize, that were made out of garbage, looked really good. They looked really cool. They were well designed. The skins you could get for them, that I would never spend the time trying to earn or spend any money on because it's a single player game, those looked really cool as well. And the ones I earned just kind of on my own and applied were good. They looked like gun skins, and it was fine. It's so hard. I feel like I've gotten 2 games in a row here where it's just the art design is completely serviceable, It meets
Yeah.
the expectations and needs of the game, and it doesn't really fall flat in any way. The characters are well drawn out and designed. When seeing them on my screen, I could recognize them and tell them apart. There's a bear. I could tell the bear from the pig,
It's like I
from the
was
dog.
there.
Yeah, I know. I paint a very pretty picture here.
So, in the game's defense, I thought that it was very appealing from an art. I haven't played it, but I thought like if one thing was most appealing about the game from not having played it, it would have been the art design. So you didn't think that was incorporated all that well. It was just a color scheme basically to lure in people like me.
Yeah, it's bright. I appreciate that it's bright, because I think that there is a real lack of bright colors in modern FPSs. They're all very dreary and dark, and I'm sure that there is some Medal of Honor or Call of Duty game to blame for that. I don't know which one, but I'm sure one of them is responsible. And so
it's Grey Ops.
Yeah, Call of Duty Grey Ops did it, or the Warfighter.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's really nice, and everything is bright. You've got this feeling of a lot of things growing back, and like these plants kind of overtaking things. You've got, because you've had the apocalypse, and then a little time has passed, and now things are overgrown again, and that was kind of cool. And there were some areas where you had these like buried churches or half-buried churches, and buildings that had kind of semi-fallen over, bridges that were but the problem was it didn't feel like it incorporated itself enough. It was very pretty. I preferred the look of this to Far Cry 5, because Far Cry 5 was kind of verdant, but just a verdant Montana, I think it was set in.
Yeah.
Whereas this, at least there is some cleverness in the way things are laid out. You've got your enemies that are kind of halfway between Mad Max and Borderlands, with these painted hockey gear and masks and shields made from car hoods. Some of the weird mutated animals looked cool. And maybe as I'm saying, talking about it more, I'm enjoying it a little bit more as I really think about it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So there are new character designs as well.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not a real flip of 5. Like, they used a lot of stuff, but there's also a lot of new usage of foliage and dilapidated buildings, and in the way Borderlands looks like it's made out of trash.
Yeah.
But like trash that people still wanted to make their own. So like they built their trash hovel and then thought they'd spruce it up over a weekend. That's kind of the feeling that New Dawn has, of like, this is a good looking trash hovel.
That's not bad. I don't know where you guys get all this paint from, or when you had the time.
Yeah.
Between scavenging for non-irradiated food.
I don't understand that part at all. I don't. There's no logic to that part of it. That's fine. It's a Far Cry game. It takes place in the future. I'm not going to really worry all that much about the logistics of it. But it looked cool. They did some good stuff with it.
Yeah. So could you, instead of comparing it to Far Cry 5, like, how did it feel compared to other like post-apocalyptic games? Like, maybe not such brown ones like Fallout, but like maybe some other ones.
So it was much brighter and less brown than the Fallout series. It was much brighter and less full of demons than the Metro series. It was much brighter and more verdant than the Mad Max game that I know will never get a sequel, no matter how much I want it to.
Same. Rip.
Yeah, that's a sad one. Yeah, I guess it was unique in that way. You have done a very good job selling me on the aesthetics of this game. So well done, you.
Buy it now, Andy.
Yeah,
$40.
I should check this out. I should check this game out. It sounds really pretty. Yeah, no, it looks good. I think that they did their use of foliage and greenery and flowers popping up everywhere was kind of cool. Looked really nice, and it gave it a distinct, like, I think, unlike some of the previous Far Cry games where you could actually take screenshots that looked like they could have come from any Far Cry game. This was distinct. I don't think I've seen a screenshot of this game that didn't, other than like, hey, it's night and there's just the horizon. But every screenshot of this game looks like Far Cry New Dawn. It's very distinctive in that way. So yeah, I would say this has got good art. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a very well visually designed game. Sound is fine. Sound
is fine.
Sound is fine.
Yeah,
perfectly serviceable.
Very serviceable. Okay, so my main question was, did this game also need to be set in Montana?
I would hold that question for the story segment of our program.
Okay, I will.
All right.
All right. I'll talk about Kingdom Hearts art and sound design. I think to a certain extent, the sound design was not really anything special. It very much leans on the old games. So if there was one thing that I could draw like extremely clear lines between Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3, it's the sound design. It's like the same sort of, noises when things get hit by the Keyblade and die. Obviously, with new abilities and stuff come new sounds. Most of the time, they were just startling, like when you pick a ride and just be fucking explosions all over the place. For the most part, though, I'm probably going to be a little bit down on the sound design, and I think it's a lot to do with the voiceovers more than anything. And probably to no fault of their own, just because of how weirdly ambitious the game is. It's like really jarring to hear some of the real voice actors and then in the exact same area someone that's very clearly not the correct voice actor for a role.
Okay.
Some people have very distinctive voices, so you're just like, when you're in the Hercules world, you're like, oh, it's definitely James Woods, like, if for no other reason he's not working at all anymore.
I can't imagine why.
And then you go to like the Pirates of the Caribbean world and you're like, that's very assuredly not Keira Knightley, but the guy that did Jack Sparrow is pretty close, and the guy that did Orlando Bloom did a terrible job. So it's like when you're acting out like very like specific humans, it becomes like really tricky. Like it really takes you out of the immersion. Which is more of a thing for the next category, but I'm going to count it as a hit on the sound design as well.
Did the main characters, like the Mickey, Goofy, Donald, were those all at least the same actors as prior Kingdom Hearts games?
They all sounded the same, and honestly, I thought that Sora was a different voice actor until the credits rolled, because he sounded so different, and I think it's because Haley Joel Osment put on like 60 pounds since Kingdom Hearts 2 came out.
He was
a straight up child when Kingdom Hearts 1 came out. So like between 1 and 2, like you can hear it. You're like, oh yeah, he's older Sora now. This is really cool. Like I'm glad they kept the same voice actor. And like Kingdom Hearts 3, I was like, that cannot be him. And then literally like I just got over it after a while, and then the credits rolled and I was like, oh, it was him. That's awesome.
I had completely forgotten that he had done the voice for that game.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the voice actors for the franchise were like, it was a big deal that they were involved. Like Lance Bass from NSYNC was Sephiroth in the first game, I believe.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Did he come back? Oh, no, Sephiroth. That's why. That's probably why they didn't bring him in. They couldn't get Lance Bass again.
Yeah, that's got to be it. He was too busy. Jesse McCartney did the voice of Ventus in these games, and a couple of the other characters.
McCartney.
Yeah, he came back for this one too.
Wow.
Fun fact. We're really broadening our audience now. You can get in the once 14-year-old girls, but now 30 audience. Otherwise, I don't think I was particularly impressed by the sound design. Like, it did a good job of making the game more colorful, because it is a colorful game, which sort of segues into the art design for the game, which is very colorful and also very much distinctly somehow both Kingdom Hearts and could just be any Japanese game, really, like any bubbly Japanese game. Some of the, like, any of the cutscenes, like, you're reminded how cartoonishly large like all the characters' eyes are, stuff like that. But one of the things like that I really enjoyed about the art design was that because there were all these different worlds, they didn't really skimp on designing each of them as individual worlds. Like a really good example is every single treasure chest on every single all the treasure chests on each individual planet had their own design. When you're on each
That's real
individual
neat.
planet, yeah, I think there's like 12 different planets, roughly. No, wait, somewhere between 9 and 12. And yeah, each map has its own UI that's unique to the environment.
Like
I
just
think
a UI like theme or literally a redesigned UI?
theme. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, some of them have unique like things you can get into. Like there's mechs on the Toy Story world, so you can
Okay.
jump into the mech toys, and then obviously you get a new UI with that. There's also like there's quite a few planets where you can get into very unique like vehicles like that as well that you can't do on every single world. Primarily just the UI where you're like selecting your abilities.
That's really cool.
It was really cool. It's like it's one of those things that like was a clear result of this game being in development for an eternity. Is like they had time to polish a lot of strange things, and like I was really grateful for it. So the character design for even the main characters is unique on a lot of the planets. When you're in the Monsters Inc. world, you're a monster. So like Donald has one eye, and Goofy, he's like a tentacly monster looking thing.
That sounds
And Sora
terrifying.
yeah, Sora looks somehow more emo. The Toy Story world, you just have like blocky joints and stuff. I think that was one of the cooler designs, honestly. Even though that was like my least favorite planet. So I think it sort of like balances out. I think the art design was really well done. There was like a lot of nuanced touches that made it really beautiful, but the sound design was like really sort of all over the place, I'll say. So like I would say I'm neutral on this category.
Well, I would say that you talked me into being very much pro sound design, or art design primarily, but sound design as well for New Dawn. I I think it did do some interesting stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have played it and talked to you about it.
Yeah. Do you want to just take over my next one as well? I would actually appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. World building in Far Cry New Dawn.
You could probably handle this one on your own. Yep. Yep.
No,
sounds
I'm really
sounds
curious.
accurate so far.
So it's based around two twins, right? Obviously two.
Yes. Yeah. They are the primary antagonists. Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. They're the primary antagonists.
Kind of. That's interesting.
It's not as cut and dry as like this is Pagan Min and he's the guy, or this is, well, I mean, Voss was a different one because this is Voss and he's the guy. Until about 40%, and then we got rid of him and replaced him with an extremely boring character. It was a bit more nebulous. You don't get that good introduction to the bad guy right at the beginning. That same kind of powerful, like them monologuing for a minute and getting real close to your face, so you can see all those digitally rendered pores and eyebrow hairs and everything.
That is a very quintessential Far Cry thing too. So it's interesting that they diverged from that.
Yeah, you still get your moment with them, but it's not that, like, boom, here you are. Boom, here are the twins. Take a look at those. Get your face all up in that. Not as much.
You've piqued my interest now. How do they introduce you to the game? Since it's a post-apocalyptic, it's got to be kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, you get this kind of, like, slideshow of, like, hey, spoilers, the last game ended with exploding. And everyone basically got fucked in this apocalypse. And the world kind of subsided for a while. And it was a shit place to be. But then people started coming out of the woodwork as the world bounced back. Like, nature finds a way and plants things. And plants start overgrowing things. Then people start coming out of their little Fallout bunker-style arrangements to repopulate the earth. And you have these bandits that are kind of taking over the area, and you're part of this resistance that's going to help out, and you're in this train, a bunch of fallen over train cars that are on fire, and you're supposed to be helping this resistance fighter guy, but I think he just gets shot in the face, and you don't make it there, but he's supposed to help out anyways, and help fight the resistance and take down these bandits, and help bring Montana to the glory that we all imagine it to be. Return it to the glory. Yeah, finally, Montana reaches its new dawn. So that the twins felt much less like a big plot element than Joseph Seed or Pagan Min or Voss or I can't remember the name of the armed smuggler in Far Cry 2. But that guy.
Wow, you played Far Cry 2?
Oh, I loved Far Cry 2. Far Cry 2 may be my favorite Far Cry game.
My mind just got blown. Well, we'll talk about that eventually.
There's a lot of things the Far Cry series could learn from Far Cry 2 in what makes a game more than just fine. And Far Cry 2 is a very flawed game, but they did some things that just... You can't see me, I'm doing that thing where you put your fingers up to your mouth and you, like the kissing because food tastes good. That thing.
Oh,
whatever you call that gesture.
You were doing like the tongue between the forked fingers.
No,
like, Jesus, Andrew.
No, I mean Far Cry 2 is good, but it's not.
You like it?
It's no Match 3 game. It's no Puzzle Quest. Yeah, no, it's the theming and just kind of the world building in this were interesting because you do get this real feel of. There are times where it almost felt like a Elder Scrolls game. Because there's a mission series where you go into an arena and you fight in an arena a little bit. And that really reminded me of the arena in Oblivion. And just kind of going into this area and walking down these long hallways as people are shouting at you and in this well-populated arena where people are coming at you and fighting you. And then you never do it again. It's just done. It's kind of like, oh, well, that was pretty cool there for a little while. But, okay. A lot of moments like that, these set pieces that really feel good in world, but they don't get used again. You don't return to them again in a cool way. They just kind of happen and then you're done. So there's a lot of single use world that was built.
That's a shame because it's very much not a linear style franchise. So.
No, but
why sacrifice what you made?
Because I remember, like, in Far Cry 3, they had those missile silos that you could run through.
Mm-hmm.
And those, like, one time, run through it as quick as you can. There are a lot of missions like that in this. Just like, well, here's your one shot to do this thing. Go do it. Go do it. Was that fun? Okay, well, we're never doing that again.
Yeah, they did that a bit in 5, too.
Yeah, that's kind of something they've done the whole time through. It's just, with such a starkly different world. I kind of wished I could have spent more time. The dilapidated outdoors is cool, but I would have liked to spend a lot more time in like semi-open dilapidated buildings. Half demolished warehouses, and they had these big half destroyed bridges, but you don't really do enough on them.
Yeah,
a bridge is a cool place to fight.
Oh yeah, it certainly is.
So there's just. The world was built out, but maybe not used in the best possible way.
Okay.
You asked the question of did it need to be set in Montana?
Yes, most importantly.
To tell the story that they told, yes. But I don't think the story that they told necessarily needed to be the story they told. Like, the parts of it...
It was contrived to be in Montana?
No, I think it was more just that, like, did Fallout 4 need to be set in Boston? No. I mean, to do a lot of the missions that they had in there, it needed to be set in Boston. But you could have made a Fallout game in any other city. And I think a post-apocalyptic Far Cry game could have been done anywhere. It didn't need to be done as a sequel to Far Cry 5. And I don't think that its narrative was so greatly served by the fact that it's directly tied to Far Cry 5 that I wouldn't have enjoyed just hey, it's 300 years in the future and the world's shit and here's Far Cry. Like, it didn't... The fact that it was a sequel to Far Cry 5 wasn't the part of the world building that was really fun. It was just the fact that this is a post-apocalypse, everything's made out of garbage, people are crazy, everything's shit, everything's overgrown. Those parts were all really cool. The parts that related back to Joseph Seed and the cult... Whatever. Good world building, not my favorite storytelling in the series.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. How is the world building and theming in Kingdom Hearts 3?
Well, here's the thing: is that when you're on quite literally 9 to 12 different worlds, it's hard to get this real sense of immersion when you're literally being ripped out of the world after 3 to 4 hours. I think that's probably the best way I can describe it. Is you're moving around so much that like you're never really invested in like the core story. You had the game forces you to get reinvested in all of these Disney worlds individually.
Oh,
And like because it very much just sort of retells the story of each of these Disney worlds, and to extremely varying degrees of success, where it like quite literally tries to retell the entire story of the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie when you're on that world.
Oh, wow.
And it does it with like almost like jump cuts to scenes that couldn't possibly have happened because characters were like right next to you. And you're just like, you're trying real hard to shoehorn this together. Whereas like if they just went with what made that world like kind of unique, it would have been better. Like there was quite literally a sailing aspect to that world, which was surprisingly fun. They made a huge map. You could jump off the boat and go on to like 15 different islands. There was pirate combat. Like they did a good job with that world. That sounds
pretty cool.
Yeah, but they literally tried to tell the story from one of the worst 4 out of 6 Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Is there 6 already?
I think a 6th one came out not long ago.
Good God.
So like that was just awkward. The Toy Story world was just dumb as rocks. Basically, like somehow the world gets diverged from the actual world that like Andy and his toys live in, and so you're dealing with these toys that have like separation anxiety, and so they are like
okay.
And then like some of the toys go missing, and so they're like they must have gone to the toy store, and so they went to the toy store, and like it was a really cool environment to be fighting in since you're like miniature toy size and you're fighting other toys. But like anytime you thought about the story, you're like it literally hurt me. That's like one of the first worlds, and I had a lot of trouble getting through it because I was like, I kind of fucking hate this. Like every time they talk, I'm getting kind of angry. So yeah, I ended up taking probably a few day break after that world because I was like, ugh, I can't. If this happens again, I'm gonna have some real trouble. Some of the worlds are a lot more forgiving. San Francisco doesn't try and tell it tells a unique story in Big Hero 6, as far as I know. I mean, it might be from the comic books or something, but
it's not the movie just again.
Yes. And that was a really cool environment. Again, bridge fight to start off that world. Dope. Real dope set piece.
I'm jealous of that bridge fight.
Yeah. Since it's San Francisco, it's basically whatever the Golden Gate Bridge is called in that world. They did a real bad job of sprinkling important bosses throughout the entire game. So the story basically climaxes right at the end.
Oh.
And you end up resolving an infinite amount of plot points from the Kingdom Hearts franchise in about like under 4 hours, and most of them just back to back within that 4 hours.
Oh.
Yeah, because it basically just does the anime thing for the entire rest of the game, where it's like, ha ha ha, let me reveal to you part of our master plan. Goodbye now. And then they're like, oh, now we have an idea of what to do to deal with it. And then like that all culminates in the last 2 worlds. Last 2 worlds are dope, though. I will say that.
Can you reveal the last 2 without it being a spoiler?
Well, they're not Disney worlds, so it would be a spoiler.
Okay,
they're
fair.
Unique worlds. I think in almost all the Kingdom Hearts games that are like heavy into the actual Disney worlds, they actually don't base like the culmination of the story in a Disney world, so it's like you get sort of this even playing field. But like again, that sort of raises problems with like being truly immersed in a story like this.
Right.
The story of Kingdom Hearts 3, I would say it probably is both the worst and the best of what makes the story in the entire franchise really great. Basically, the story of Kingdom Hearts is like the most convoluted thing you could ever imagine. There's so many different villains, like jumping through time.
I think Jim Sterling did a 20-minute video where he was trying to explain the story of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a real bad job. Let's just say the same villain somehow appears in like somewhere between like 8 to 12 different bodies over the course of time, and they all are like converging at the same time to psych out the fake bad guys from the other games, because they're the actual real bad guys, and stuff. Oh god, it's so much stuff.
No, this makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, sure. So I mean, you're the band of good guys. Like Mickey Mouse is like your homie. You got your mentor, and they're all trying to like save a bunch of allies. So you can all get the exact number of people to fight their exact number of people because of the prophecy. And even though we could have gotten more good guys, the prophecy,
right? Of course,
it's just needlessly convoluted, but also it wraps up almost every loose end in the franchise. There should be more to expect from the franchise. Whether it's the same group of people or not, that remains to be seen. But that I don't think any of what I said was a good thing. I will say that like I was always had this like very comfortable feeling while playing the game. So like in that sense, like I was immersed in that the game like made me like childlike and joyful for like the first time in a long time.
Well, that's pretty great.
Yeah. So like it rekindled like a lot, something that I assumed was dead inside me, which was joy. No, I'm exaggerating, but it did a good job of making me forget how corny the game was, because it was just so like overwhelmingly nice. So that's the one positive, but I would say in this category, it's sort of like I would say they did a pretty fucking janky job.
Okay, so it sounds like we both had games that could have done a better job, but maybe it sounds like yours at least had more highs in world building than New Dawn did. I keep wanting to call New Vegas. That New Dawn, that you had the highs were higher than New Dawn's highs.
That might be true, but I would say the lows were also lower. Really, I'm thinking of like a positive. If they did a good job, it was for the same reasons that it did a good job with the art design, and I can't really give it credit for the same thing twice.
Right.
I mean, other than being like contrived, I used that word. You didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't contrived. Like it's hard because everything made sense. Everything worked in story. Like it just they didn't make it. It wasn't exciting for me. Where you're talking about these moments of like getting kind of giddy and feeling wrapped up in these, like there wasn't any of that. That's in the story and world of New Dawn. It was just like, okay, let's keep going, and not in a bad way, but just in a very neutral way. And it didn't make me feel anything. Where it sounds like Kingdom Hearts made you feel some things sometimes.
Yeah, I would say that, and if If that's how you feel, then I think I can agree with that, and I guess give credit to Kingdom Hearts.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so that leaves us with a 2-1 score in favor of Kingdom Hearts, which makes our last category very relevant, since it's a 2-point category, per our explanation on episode 1. Check that out. All right, so our last category is overall experience. I will let you go ahead and sum up your entire experience with Far Cry New Dawn.
2 words. It's fine. The overall feeling of it was a good game. Like I enjoyed the time I spent with it, but I'm already having difficulty remembering bits of it, and I will have even more difficulty in a month's time. And that's the same way I feel about Far Cry 5 and Far Cry 4, because I think about Far Cry 3 and I think about Blood Dragon. I remember a lot of the beats of Far Cry 3 even now, because that game was really interesting and a really memorable experience. Blood Dragon was a just insane experience, and I loved that game. And I remember, even though it was short, even though a lot of the gameplay loop was repetitive, it was still a very enjoyable game because of how well themed and bright and colorful and unique it was. Far Cry 2, I remember a lot of, despite it being a very flawed game, and I think I was one of like 8 people who played it and enjoyed it. This game I'm gonna forget. It's gonna leave me in a couple months' time, and I will have difficulty remembering more than what's displayed on the Steam page for it, and what was in the just general marketing and big picture, mile high view of it. I'm not gonna remember specific missions. I can really only remember like 4 missions off the top of my head that actually that I remember doing. They were all there. I played through and beat all the missions, but I remember like 3 or 4 of them. Whereas I can remember more Far Cry 2 and 3 missions. So it's fine. It was a very enjoyable experience, but forgettable.
Okay. I greatly enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't know how much more detail I need to go into, and for the sake of time, probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun with it. I had some problems with it, but I mean, I always went back to the game after I blew off some steam, and the problems were entirely story related because like some of the worlds were just like tedious, like long, draining emotionally because of how dumb the stories were. But for every low in the story, like there were like it did things right. Like San Francisco told a really unique story that like it was definitely a rehash of what the movie was, movie/comic, but also like very much its own thing, and I very much enjoyed it as its own thing. So yeah, I mean, and the game's endlessly fun. I play the game for the gameplay almost entirely. I would say at the end of the day, my overall experience was definitely positive despite the negatives.
And you'll remember this in a couple of months.
I think about it frequently, and
Okay.
I will definitely remember it at least for a few years. Hopefully by the time Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out, but I'm just jinxing myself now, knock on wood. Yes, memorable, unique amongst all the games that I've played in recent years. I think that's one of the things that Kingdom Hearts really makes Kingdom Hearts special, is that it's not really like anything else. And Kingdom Hearts 3 very much kept that same feeling. Like it didn't sacrifice what made the old game special to bring the game into a new generation. And that's a game that Kingdom Hearts 2 came out 2 generations ago. So it had a lot to prove. And I think it proved everybody happy. I won't say proved them wrong. I don't think anyone was rooting against Kingdom Hearts, but
no, yeah. The worst I saw was, is it going to be worth the wait?
Yeah. As a fan, a longtime fan, I will leave it at that, I would say it was worth the wait, interestingly enough, despite all its flaws.
Well, I think that very much, let's settle on Kingdom Hearts. I mean, that's a good indicator that was just a better game.
Okay, so I think I agree. And so with that, that's a 4-1 win for Kingdom Hearts 3. And Kingdom Hearts 3 will be moving on to our winners bracket at some point later this year.
Yeah, good job, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Clap. All right, be sure to check out episode 1 if you haven't. This has been episode 2. I'm Brent Langevin. You can find me on all the social medias at Arcadia. That's a key EY in the middle of Arcadia. Coincidence to Kingdom Hearts? Maybe not.
I'm Andrew Paulo. You can find me on all relevant social medias as Solitalker, SOLI Talker, as in someone who talks about Solly. So look me up there.
All right, great. Well, see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.